You may be seated. Good morning and welcome, Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, the Minister of the DTIC, Honorable Minister Pakstau, President and Chairman of the Afriximbank, Dr. George Elombi, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, senior government officials, members of the Diplomatic Corps and the Fourth Estate, captains of industry, and distinguished guests. My name is Delia Ndlovu. I am the chair of the Export Credit Insurance Corporation of South Africa. The ECIC was created with a higher purpose to unlock South African exports and also to ensure that we de-risk cross-border investments. And we do that by ensuring South African exports against commercial and political risk. It is my humble honor today to have the opportunity to be your program director. So today, for all of us, is a historic occasion because it's a moment whose time has come that we've been waiting for. Today marks the formal activation of the strategic partnership between Afriximbank and South Africa. This is following the Parliament's approval for South Africa to accede to the Afriximbank's establishment agreement. This strategic partnership is anchored in deepening industrialization as well as ensuring that we drive regional integration, leveraging of the AFC FTA. So to give you further context, I'd like to call to the podium the Honorable Minister Pakstau to tell us a little bit more about this strategic partnership. Thank you, Minister. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Delia, Chairperson of the ECIC. I almost left my iPad behind. And I was worried that I was going to say, so where's my iPad? His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic, allow me to also acknowledge the former Deputy President of the Republic, Mambaleke Mbete, my colleague, Minister Ronald Lamola. Some have said if I was taller and darker, we might have survived as twins. But I'm not sure that I could survive in South Sudan, but I think he is short in South Sudan, where he was recently. Our special guest, President of Afriximbank, Dr. George Elombi, and your team that is here. Many of your colleagues have joined us this morning, indicative of the priority that you give to this process. Let me take this opportunity to also acknowledge a variety of stakeholders that are here present. Leaders of business, of course, here present, members of the board, President of COSATU, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. And as I look around the room, I think in every table I'm going to have to acknowledge, so all protocol observed, Ambassador Mashimbi. Mr. President, We gather this morning really as South Africa has made a decision, having gone through multiple processes, to accede to membership, if you like, of Afreximbank, a process that has been quite intense and interesting. And I think for me it is important that we acknowledge the contributions made by all those who pushed for us to get to this point. Starting with President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I'm not sure if the President recalls, we as the DTIC had submitted to Cabinet a memo on the Afreximbank. And after I had a long discussion with Minister Kotongwana, and for reasons we both agreed were important, we were requesting Cabinet to postpone the item. What was unfortunate is that at the Cabinet meeting, I was acting Minister of Finance. So I submitted an item and then requested to remove it from Cabinet. And I tried to give some explanation of what our discussion with Minister Kotongwana was. And the President said, I just can't understand. I can't understand how you get to the point where you take so long to make a decision that actually is so logical. So I went back to Minister Kotongwana and said, I don't think we have much of a choice. We need to get this through. Excuse me. Of course, we've had many other role players. I think it would be appropriate to acknowledge the team at Afreximbank, amongst others, the former president and chair of the bank, Professor Orama. I think I'd been minister for 2 weeks when he made sure that he meets me to talk about Afreximbank, and facilitated by Ambassador Mashimbi. They didn't give me time to settle in, so I had to chase this file from about 2 weeks into office. And I've had the opportunity to work with my dear brother, Dr. Lombi, on this process as we concluded, and he fits hand in glove into the task of president and chair of the bank. I was relating to the president as we were discussing what the country program should look like. The appetite that Dr. Lombi had to work with us to get to the implementation of the country program. We explained that, of course, what we are doing is to convert the shares of ECIC into sovereign shareholding, but part of the ambition is to either restructure the ECIC and or establish a local Exim Bank or national credit agency. That would be able to support businesses either with ECIC or complementing the ECIC. And the business case has pretty much been concluded as to the direction that we're taking with regards to the establishment of a local Exim capacity. Mr. President, I also thought that it's important to indicate that we've started the process of discussing what the program in detail would look like, what the impact of the projects would be, that the idea is not simply just to submit a list of projects for funding, but the idea is to have a program which program would be linked to national industrial policy, our intent and our ambition as a country, both on the continent and internationally, as we diversify our markets and identify partners with whom we work. So over the next few weeks, we would be finalizing the details of what that program looks like, And it doesn't mean to stakeholders that, in fact, you do not have access to the facilities, but it is to say that it is important that these are done in such a way that, in fact, we can make maximum impact and drive growth and development in the country. So we're at a point where, for a few months, I had our colleagues on to at Afreximbank stalking me to make sure that we get the social check. Well, Minister, have you gotten through cabinet? Have you gone to Parliament? I see she's sitting with the chair of the committee. What is Parliament saying? And I should say, Honorable Chair Masina was swift in ensuring that the committee is able to consider the matter. But it is now time for us to stalk you. So over the next months, we'll be stalking you, we'll be keeping you busy, Ronnie, Sonto, and all the colleagues at the bank. I'm not just isolating those that are in close proximity, but we know where their homes are. So Ronnie and Sonto, we can go to their homes if they delay us and say to their parents, these guys are delaying us. But once again, on behalf of the team, we really wish to acknowledge the President's availability this morning to oversee the signing ceremony.
Minister, for the visionary remarks and inspiring remarks. I know why you've been acting like a man possessed, urging us to act with speed and to present our business case for the Afreximbank. I understand the journey that you've been on, and I'm excited and enthused. Thanks for your leadership. I think while we are reflecting on the minister's words, I'm going to invite you to look at the screen so that we can listen to the leader of the AFCFTA, the Honorable Wamkele Mene, as he talks about how he has shaped the economic integration of Africa. Please look at the screens and let's have the video, please. Thank you.
Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, Your Excellency Dr. George Elombi, President and Chairman of the Board of Afriximbank, Honorable Minister Park Stow, senior leaders of government, senior leaders of Afriximbank, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to join you, albeit virtually, for this signing ceremony and the formal deposit of South Africa's instrument of accession to the agreement establishing the African Export-Import Bank. Over the years, Afreximbank has established itself as a vital engine of economic transformation, providing long-term capital, financing industrialization and export diversification, and responding decisively to economic shocks when support has been most required. South Africa's accession strengthens the bank's African mandate and opens new opportunities for the country to leverage Afreximbank's financing instruments, expertise, and partnerships in support of national development priorities that are set by South Africa. South Africa's accession, therefore, reflects a deliberate policy choice to deepen engagement with Africa's foremost trade finance institution and to anchor its economic future more firmly within the continent's collective economic development vision. By so doing, South Africa reaffirms her leadership in strengthening credible African institutions that are capable of financing Africa's economic development. Membership of Afreximbank expands access to trade and project finance that is essential for structural economic transformation and macroeconomic stability. It supports investment in value-added industries, export-oriented manufacturing, infrastructure, and energy, whilst at the same time enabling South African companies to participate in regional value chains and benefit fully from the opportunities created by the AFCFTA. This ceremony is therefore significant not just for South Africa and Afreximbank, it is also significant for the implementation of the AFCFTA. The success of the AFCFTA depends not only on market access, but also on the availability of trade finance to support production and trade-enabling infrastructure. Today's event sends a clear and powerful signal that Africa's leading economies are committed to African solutions by supporting and enabling African institutions to finance Africa's economic development and continental integration. Today's step comes at a time of heightened geoeconomic tensions, trade fragmentation, and the increasing weaponization of trade, investment, and industrial policies. These trends have weakened the multilateral trading system and have increased uncertainty. For our continent, the conclusion could not be clearer. Developing a resilient continental market of 1.4 billion people and implementing the rules of the AFCFTA that open trade and investment, enabling Africa to rely more on herself than on unilateral preferential trade arrangements that can be removed at a whim, leaving millions of people jobless. We must build a domestic market. The impact of the AFCFTA is beginning to demonstrate results. According to a recent report, intra-Africa trade increased by 12.4% in 2024 to reach $220 billion, marking a gradual shift to value-added production such as machinery, vehicles, and others. UNCTAD also reports that Africa is among the few regions outperforming the global average in trade growth, driven in large part by stronger intra-Africa trade. Within this context, South Africa's accession to Afreximbank positions the continent's most advanced economy to diversify export markets, strengthen regional production networks, and support her exporters, investors, and SMEs in engaging the continental market more effectively. Given the current adverse global conditions, it is patently obvious that Africa must rely on herself for financing her own investment and industrial development. The AFCFTA Secretariat looks forward to deepening collaboration with South Africa and Afreximbank as we work together toward an integrated, industrialized, and prosperous continent. The partnership that we have developed with Afreximbank over the last 5 years has strengthened and has yielded very positive results. For example, together, Afreximbank, the African Union, and the AFCFTA Secretariat launched a very successful intra-Africa payments platform, the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, enabling payments in local currency, eliminating reliance on a third currency, and enabling millions and millions of small medium enterprises to trade at more cost-effective rates. The introduction of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is an example of what we can achieve as Africans when we collaborate to advance the economic development of our continent. As we speak today, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System has been operationalized by over 150 commercial banks in Africa. I look forward to South Africa in due course joining the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System to enable small medium enterprises, youth entrepreneurs in South Africa to access markets outside of the SADC region and to do so at cost-effective rates, trading using the South African rand and reducing the cost to trade. In conclusion, I want to once again take this opportunity to congratulate South Africa and Afreximbank for this historic milestone. I thank you.
Well, thank you to Wamkele Mene in absentia. It's fascinating to hear how the AFCFTA can be the catalyst for inclusive growth and economic development on our continent, especially against the backdrop of, an emerging multipolar world marked by polarization, marked by post-truth, and the ideals of free trade being under attack. So it's good to know that we can determine our own destiny as Africans, spearheaded by the Africaine. I see the Honorable Dr. George Elombi is looking at me. He's chomping at the bit to come and tell his story. So it's my great pleasure, Doctor, to welcome you to the podium. Please give him a round of applause as he rises to the stage. Thank you.
Your Excellency, honorable ministers, distinguished gentlemen and ladies of the press, distinguished guests, we're here in large numbers, Your Excellency, at your invitation. We came in quite a large group on my left here from Afreximbank. We are your clansmen and women. We represent your sub-clan of Afreximbank. Together with you, your team and South Africa, we all belong to a common homeland, that main clan which we call Africa. It is therefore not a privilege to join our clansmen today. It's a duty. It is what we normally should do on a more frequent basis. What brings us here is a particular form of duty, the duty that clan people owe to themselves, the duty to maintain the partnership of the clan. What brings us here is also the outcome of a journey that has transcended 3 generations of leaders of Afreximbank and several of the Republic of South Africa. Given the context, and not wanting to be outnumbered, we came with a large delegation. We came to perform the traditional rites of membership of the clan. We came so that you should recognize that we've always been members of the clan. This affirmation of the membership of South Africa in Afreximbank marks a decisive step towards uniting around the continent's economic interest, the interest of our mother clan. South Africa's membership of the bank, while providing Afreximbank a full continental coverage, brings the country into the heart of this institution's vision and its aspirations to promote the change so much desired in the structure of Africa's trade. We insist on changing the structure of Africa's trade, not just the trade. While it has been a 3-decade ambition for us at Afreximbank, Your Excellency, it was truly the Pan-African spirit and the strong leadership of yourself, your ministers, and the rest of your team here that turned a long and almost forgotten aspiration into reality. You have helped reignite the hope for a united continent which rallies around its common goals. Permit me, therefore, to pay special tribute to my immediate predecessor and your brother, Professor Orama, who made it a personal ambition to bring South Africa into the Afreximbank family. We thank him immensely for pursuing this objective with passion and determination, recognizing that our effort to transform Africa will remain incomplete, totally incomplete, without South Africa. Same to his predecessors, the first 2 presidents of Afreximbank, Mr. Christopher Edodo and Mr. Jean-Louis Ekra, who started the initiative and who reminded us month on month that Afreximbank as an instrument of trade is not complete until South Africa's membership is completed. This partnership could not have come at a better time, Your Excellency. At this particular time, when you yourself, both as a person and as a country, have faced extraordinary challenges with developments in the world. At this particular time, perhaps to remind us that those who built the modern world on what they call the foundation of global cooperation and multilateralism may just be turning their backs on it. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. Let us look within the continent for sources of development. We have a sizable market of 1.4 billion people that should become our preferred destination for the manufactured goods or for the sources of the raw materials we need to produce those goods that we must trade amongst ourselves first. The AFCFTA enjoins us to do so. We have abundant resources and enough capital to invest in processing capacities. The fate of our economies and the destiny of African people can no longer be tied to the benevolence of others. I am therefore pleased, Your Excellency, that together with the South African Department of Trade and Industry, under the leadership of Honorable Minister Park Stow, we have put together with him and his colleagues what we consider an important package to signify that South Africa's complete membership of Afreximbank was intended, it was deliberate, it was purposeful. We have put together an important package of $8 billion United States dollars, an initial package of $8 billion United States dollars for South Africa. This country package, we know, is aligned with South Africa's National Development Plan, the review's National Industrial Framework, and will target key areas. We intend to do very heavy investments in the local processing of natural resources, thereby helping retain value within our economies, create jobs, generate wealth for our people, for that's the ultimate objective. We intend to expand the revenue base for the South African fiscal authorities. In particular, we will prioritize mineral processing, the expansion of the automotive manufacturing and development, and the expansion of industrial parks and specialized zones. We plan to invest in the development of critical infrastructure, and this should include what we consider extremely important for South Africa and for many countries in our continent. That's energy generation and transmission. They are vital for the industrial production and for the mineral processes we heard above. No longer, Your Excellency, will we want entrepreneurs to say there is no power to do a mining plant. There is no power to process manganese in this country. We plan to do the industrial parks in which we would put them and provide the power. We also plan to facilitate access to regional and continental markets. That's the very purpose for which we were created, thereby realizing value from the single market under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, to which our brother Wamkele Mene referred to. We will work with institutions such as the Industrial Development Corporation, the IDC, the Development Bank of South Africa, the DBSA, the Public Investment Corporation, and the commercial banks, in particular the commercial banks, Rand Bank, Standard Bank, ABSA, Nedbank. These are our true partners in the drive towards a private sector-led transformation of the South African and the continent's economies. We think it should be driven by those banks and ourselves. We do not think, Minister Tao, that you should seek to put public sector money in these sectors again. Public sector money should go to meet basic infrastructure in education, in health, and so on. We intend to overwhelm the private sector, especially the processing sector, with the resources that are required. And Marcos, we mean this. We have the money. South Africa tends to have the expertise, which is not available elsewhere. We will invest in the capacity of local institutions to lead or support national economic development programs. In particular, we know that it's government's objective to transform the Export Credit Insurance Corporation. So we try to support the government's plan to transform that institution into a full-fledged Eximbank with the capacity to support industrial development and economic diversification. We will also plan to invest in programs directed at small and medium-sized enterprises, those little firms whose survival depends so much on what we do. We did not wait for this moment to begin. We planned in advance by working proactively with the DTI and the National Transformation Fund to design an Afreximbank, an additional $3 billion inclusive plan for South Africa, an additional $3 billion inclusive plan. This $3 billion inclusive package is to support the resourceful but marginalized and vulnerable segments of the South African economy. Afreximbank's support to South Africa has not been tied to the membership of the bank, to the country's membership of the bank. Over the last few years, the bank has invested significantly in the South African economy across critical sectors. In 2018, with the ECIC, we launched a 1 billion South Africa Trade and Investment Promotion Program, a joint activity aimed at promoting and expanding trade and investment between South Africa and other African countries. It is our goal to renew this program at a higher level. MD, that's the direction we intend to go with you. We did contribute to the completion of the 300 million Zim Borders project between Zimbabwe and South Africa. and we contributed to the participation of South African banks in the 24 billion Mozambique liquefied natural gas project through a risk-sharing scheme with the ECIC. We then also provided the base for the financing, the base financing for the preparation of a bankable feasibility study for a 500 million titanium dioxide manufacturing plant in Richards Bay Industrial Zone. The bank has now fully approved its own contribution of 175 million participation in the development phase of this project. The board has provided that approval. Afreximbank over the last few years has stood by critical state-owned enterprises, Eskom and Transnet, to enable them to continue to deliver on their important roles in the country. In September 2025, Afreximbank and the government, acting through the Infrastructure South Africa program, we then signed a 20 million joint project preparation, just a project preparation facility framework to unlock up to 750 million of high-quality, bankable projects across several critical sectors covering energy, transport, and logistics. Even without full accession to the bank established agreement, the current posture of Afreximbank in South Africa, Your Excellency, demonstrates Afreximbank's philosophy of pulling the continent behind a common cause for our people. Our current pipeline of projects in South Africa, all at different phases of review within the bank, exceeds $6 billion, and they cover healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, energy, industrial, and mining sectors. As I end this statement, I must reiterate that we are here first and foremost as Africans, before being bankers. Our interests cannot be any different from those of our brothers and sisters in South Africa and in other parts of the continent. We will do whatever it takes to support the government and the private sector in building a local economy that serves all South Africans and that looks out to the wider African continent. Permit me, therefore, Your Excellency, to pay a very special tribute to you for the boldness in ensuring that South Africa became a full member of Afreximbank. It is consistent with the long-standing Pan-African fiber in you. I would also like to thank my brother, Honorable Minister Tau, and his colleagues at the DTI for their tireless efforts in seeing this project to fruition, along with the Minister of Finance, Honorable Godongwana, and the Minister of International Cooperation, Honorable Lamola, for giving this initiative priority. The distinguished gentlemen and ladies of the press, I can see you here in large numbers too. You deserve our special mention. Afreximbank has survived because of its policy relevance to its member states. But if you of the African press had not made it a special duty to highlight that fact, perhaps the African public and governments may not have noticed it with so much ease. We promise to work harder to deserve the confidence and the special attention we have received from the African Press Club. You, too, are members of our clan. I therefore say to you that if this connection, this renewed connection between the bank and South Africa and the bank and its wider African constituency transforms South Africa and Africa, it will be recorded that you of the press also made it possible. Our board member from South Africa, Mr. Ronald Sibongeseni Ntuli, and the South African ambassador to the Republic of Egypt, Mr. Nsiki Mashimbwe, deserve a special acknowledgement. Mr. Ntuli was not prepared to accept our view at some point that South Africa would not join and that we should leave the business to a subsequent generation. As a board member and private sector investor, we thank you, Ronald, for your persistence. I must also mention my colleagues at the bank for the delivery of this important task. I also say to you, as I just did to the press, that if this connection brings about our long-established dream to transform the structure of Africa's trade, if it enhances our sense in that institution, that if it can be done, it must be done. If it cannot be done, it must be done. If we succeed in that, and we succeed in transmitting that spirit to the generation that comes after us, it will be noted that you too made it possible. I must thank you for joining us in this activity. Your Excellency, we look forward to that shared journey, which it is our duty to undertake with the Republic of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Elombi, for that riveting speech. I must say, after listening to you, I'm even more invigorated to continue deepening the rapport we've already built with your dynamic and talented team. I'm sure our ECIC acting CEO who's here, who's been involved in crafting the country program, will attest to the fact that we are looking forward to the continued counsel, wise counsel that we get from your team. So thank you for everything you've done for us thus far. The numbers you were spitting out were really, really encouraging. So thank you so much. And now, Excellencies and distinguished guests, it is a rare privilege for me to welcome to the podium His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you, Mr. President.
Program Director and Chairperson of the South African Export Credit Insurance Corporation, Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Minister Pakstow, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Ronald Lamola, former Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, my beautiful sister, Baleka Mbete, who also was the Speaker of our National Assembly. I say beautiful advisedly because she has remained absolutely beautiful over the years that I've known her, which numbers up to 30 years. It's not often that beauty remains dazzling for 30 years that you've known someone. President of the Afreximbank, Dr. George Alumbi, and your guests who you have brought along with. We are truly grateful to have you amongst us, but also the many people that you have brought with, much as your intention was to awe and overwhelm us, we still remain in greater numbers than you. And also in absentia, to greet Professor Benedict Orama, who I worked with very closely, which I will relate in a little while, members of the board and the technical team, and representatives of business and organized labor who are here. I heard that the president of the largest workers' federation in the history of South Africa is here as well, and a number of other representatives from COSATU. I greet you all, and each time I come into a business meeting, I often do a scan. President Olumbi, I do a quick scan to see if I am amongst people who have money. And sometimes, as I enter the room, I often just have a sense of the aroma of money. But this time around, meeting you and shaking your hand in our private room, I just felt that, no, I don't need to even scan the room to see whether there's money. No sooner had I met you and shook your hand, I just felt that I am in the presence of money. So I don't know if you loved music. You love music, and there's a Tina Turner song where she sings, "Hey, big spender, spend a little time with me." So in your case, I spent a little time with you in the room before, but now sitting next to you, I'm overwhelmed. I mean, for someone who I'm meeting, I think we met before, but let me say, I'm meeting you for the first time as president of the bank. You've proved to be a big spender. I mean, you just are dishing out quite a lot of money. And I started doing my count because I have a mental calculator and a physical one. In no time, you had told us, as South Africans, that the bank would spend, at the very least, 13 billion US dollars. Now, for those who are not quick at converting, that is 206 billion South African rands. That is not Mickey Mouse. So that is the weight and the measure of the president of Afreximbank, who we should give a rousing round of applause and thank you. My sister Baleka Mbeto may remember that when we first went to Parliament in 1994, we had banks. You know, once you became a member of Parliament, you had come from working for the ANC, and the ANC used to pay us 2,000 rand a month. It was just increased a little bit to 4,000 rand a month. Even Nelson Mandela was paid 4,000 rand a month. I was the Secretary General. When we got to Parliament, suddenly you had all manner of banks coming, offering you credit cards and mortgage bonds and so forth. And all that was debt. Now today we have a man who has come to offer us money for investment. And I'd like to thank you, my brother. You are not like other banks. Other banks just come to offer you debt. Thank you so much. Much more seriously, today we mark a major milestone in our quest to realize what I would call the economic integration of our continent, Africa. South Africa's accession to Africa Export-Import Bank affirms our commitment to African industrial development and to deepening trade, investment, and development across our continent. Once finalized, the South African Afreximbank country program will be operationalized with a finance package, as we had, that will initially support a range of strategic projects across the trade and industrial cluster. And you are correct in saying, Minister Tau, that when the issue came up, I asked, this is so logical. And I even asked, what took us so long? Because this is the family that we should have been part of from the get-go moment. The program will inject capital into priority industrial projects, export diversification, infrastructure development, and more importantly for us, transformative initiatives. And one of those areas that we're going to focus on with immediate effect is to give muscle to our transformation fund, which Minister Tau and his team have been working on to support black businesses who, by the way, were held back by the evil apartheid system from being active participants in the economy of our country. And this is where I am often amazed at those who have been privileged in the apartheid system, who are trying to block us as black people as we seek to accede to becoming real economic actors in the economy of our country. And we thank Afreximbank for giving muscle to the objective that we have. And this today, for me, means that the transformation fund, which others have been opposing, is going to happen, and it's going to happen right now. So today's signing signals a deliberate as well as an ambitious and more impactful phase in our country's economic engagement with our beloved African continent as well as the world. For South Africa, the decision to accede to Afreximbank represents a strategic alignment. We seek to contribute to an Africa that prioritizes intracontinental trade, that builds its own industrial base and capacity, and also mobilizes African financial institutions to support development. For more than 30 years, Afreximbank has demonstrated its own ability, its resilience, its innovative capability, but it has more than that demonstrated that it has impact. It has developed a diversified portfolio across geographic areas as well as sectors. This partnership will strengthen in more ways than one South Africa's ability to support exporters, South African exporters, that is, industrial projects and regional value chains while advancing our continent's development. South Africa accedes to Afreximbank at a time of both challenge, which at times makes people terrified, but it is also a time of great opportunity for our continent and indeed for our country as well. Global economic uncertainties, climate risks, and shifting trade patterns underscore the need for building economic resilience and capability. As a country, we are implementing far-reaching reforms and transformative actions to restore growth, to improve competitiveness, but also to expand inclusion. It is important for us, as we deal with all these challenges, we should also focus on engendering inclusive growth. Coming from a history where there was exclusion, where the majority of our people were excluded from economic activity, our focus is on inclusion. So the resources that we mobilize will therefore be focused on ensuring that there is inclusion in economic participation. We're working to accelerate economic growth by implementing various transformative reforms, increasing infrastructure investment, and also targeting a reformed industrial policy. As we accede to the establishment agreement today, we do so with a clear understanding that membership alone is not the objective that we are seeking to achieve. What matters is how this partnership is translated into practical instruments that expand productivity, capacity,
diversity of our exports, and integrate more South Africans into the regional and global value chain.
And in doing so, we will seek to focus on empowering women-led businesses, youth-led businesses, for they are the real future of our country as well as of our continent. South Africa's industrialization path is anchored by three mutually reinforcing pillars: decarbonization, diversification, and digitization. We are pursuing an energy transition that balances climate imperatives with developmental realities, that builds new industrial capabilities and creates new jobs. That is why we are investing in renewable energy, green hydrogen, sustainable fuels, and climate-resilient infrastructure. That is why we are also focusing on beneficiating critical minerals for clean energy technologies. Now, when we started harping on the issue of beneficiation of minerals to stop our continent from exporting rock, soil, and dust, and to focus more on beneficiating the very, very rare minerals that we have as an endowment on our continent, many people thought we were mad. But that madness has now turned into what people believe is the correct path that we should take. At the G20 summit, we were able to get the G20 countries to accept that Africa should now begin to move with greater speed to beneficiate the minerals that it mines, that this great endowment that many of our countries on the continent have should be turned into products that can be exported, where we add value. But more importantly, there was great acceptance that the communities from where the minerals are extracted should be the ones that benefit the most. Now, many sectors have to be advanced, and we've got to improve them, and these sectors where African countries have competitive advantage must be exacerbated. There are sectors where long-term project finance and guarantees and blended instruments are essential to unlocking scale. Diversifying both our export basket and our exporter base is, in the end, key to our economic growth strategy. What we are seeking to do is to shift towards higher value, more complex exports in advanced manufacturing, green industries, critical minerals beneficiations, pharmaceuticals, and the digital economy. We cannot sit by while we watch the whole world moving towards AI and say we will watch and just be consumers of AI processes and products. We as Africans must be the ones who generate the various components of artificial intelligence, and we must be at the center of it all. And to have a bank like Afreximbank working with us is a great boon for us. So therefore, we must be part of the success that we deserve. Through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we are also working to build African value chains that anchor production on the continent and strengthen Africa's economic sovereignty. Afreximbank's instruments from trade finance and project preparation, as well as to risk mitigation and market access support, are indispensable in turning this vision that we have into reality. They will help to lower barriers to entry, reduce transaction costs, and support South African firms as they expand into new markets on our continent. Through the Afreximbank Inclusive Development Support Program for South Africa, a dedicated facility has been set aside to address structural barriers that have historically excluded many South African firms and companies from participating in trade and industrialization. You may recall that in the past, in the apartheid days, it was almost impossible for even those small and emerging African or black businesses to trade with our continent. Now, Afreximbank is just going to open the entire continent wide. Now, as a country, we are working to enable new and emerging exporters to participate meaningfully in trade, particularly small and medium enterprises, particularly black industrialists who we have been developing over a number of years and who are already proving to be very successful. And we also want women and youth-owned firms to be active participants in all these developments. So this program will enable black businesses and entrepreneurs to access finance, to build assets, and participate in strategic sectors. So if there have been barriers of participation, this opportunity removes those barriers today. Today's accession brings us a step closer towards the incubation of a South Africa Export-Import Bank. Working closely with Afreximbank and building on the experience of our Export Credit Insurance Corporation, we are essentially laying the foundations for a national institution that will support exporters, and it will crowd in investment and provide financing that is aligned to our industrial priorities. This is a strategic investment in our ability to compete and to support South African firms across the export life cycle. It will help to ensure that our participation in African and global trade is sustained, it is resilient, and it is developmental. But more importantly, that it is profitable. So allow me to conclude by acknowledging the leadership that has brought us to this point. We welcome Dr. George Ilombi, and President and Chairperson of the Board of Directors of Afreximbank, whose stewardship marks a new chapter in the bank's evolution. We recognize Professor Benedict Orama, who is the former president of Afreximbank, under whose visionary leadership the process of South Africa's accession was initiated and advanced. I remember how, for the longest time, he kept on urging us as South Africa to become part of this bank. Now, the contribution that has been made in building Afreximbank into a formidable continental institution laid much of the foundations for the partnership we formalized today. And I forever remember with great fondness the manner in which Professor Orama and I worked together when we were going through the horrible COVID period, and how I got to admire not only his energy, but his vision when we were, as a continent, being put to the back by the global players when it came to acquiring personal protective equipment and acquiring vaccines. He was one of those, together with Strive Masiyiwa, who were in the forefront of fighting for Africa to get vaccines, access to vaccines, but later on, for Africa to manufacture vaccines on our continent. If you never applaud anything that I have said, this is one thing that you should applaud. Now, so you understand, this was a most revolutionary moment. If you recall, once COVID broke out, it was the countries in the Northern Hemisphere, because of access to pharmaceutical companies, that doled out money to those pharmaceutical companies to develop a vaccine. And once that vaccine had been developed, they acquired nearly all the vaccines in the world, and we were left without any access to vaccines. And we had to work extremely hard, at times making phone calls at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock a.m. South African time, with the rest of the world, trying to get vaccines for the 1.3 billion people on our continent. And what they had done was just to amass the vaccines, and many of them had acquired vaccines that were 3 to 5 times more of their own population, and did not want to release some to our continent. And we had to put up a big fight, and Professor Orama and Strive Masiyiwa and myself, and including a number of other advisors that we had appointed, we worked extremely hard, but in the end it was Afreximbank that told the world, because they kept saying, where will you get the money? You don't have money to pay for those vaccines. It was Professor Orama who said, I will make sure that Afreximbank puts a check on the table, a check of $2 billion up front on the table, so that you provide the continent with vaccines. It was then that we were able to open the doors and get the vaccines. And if Afreximbank had not done that, many of you would have died. You wouldn't be here today. We were able to get vaccines. So you should say thank you to Afreximbank for my continued life and existence. Now, I say this advisedly because our continent went through a rather challenging moment. You will recall that many of our people were dying like flies all over the continent. And we had then to craft the term that these other Northern Hemisphere countries were practicing vaccine apartheid. And when we mentioned the word apartheid, then they became ashamed. And they woke up and they said, yes, we should make vaccines available to Africa. So I pay tribute, quite honestly, to the leadership of Afreximbank. And I say today, for me, it's a personal crowning moment that we now become fully aligned with Afreximbank. So I thank you. And finally, we thank Minister Tau for his central role in advancing South Africa's trade and industrial agenda. But I also want to thank Minister Ronald Lamola for continuing to fly our South African flag, not only on political diplomatic matters, but also on economic diplomatic matters. We have a formidable team that is making sure that Africa, or South Africa, holds its head high, but more importantly, that our continent is at the table, is recognized, and has a voice, and becomes a participant in the decisions that are taken. So today, as we sign this instrument of accession, we do so with clarity of purpose, with confidence, and let this moment mark not only South Africa's full membership of Afreximbank. We were a member, just, you know, we were like a side member. We were half pregnant, and today we are fully pregnant. So today we are a real member. Now, but the activation of a partnership that delivers growth, that is transformative, and that also gives our country an opportunity to be fully part of our beloved continent. So for me, this is a great day, and I couldn't be happier that finally we have this accession. It took a long time, as Minister Tau was saying, and it even had to take Parliament. And our Parliament is very progressive. They did not even hesitate to be part of this. As I recall, the vote was quite overwhelming. So today, we are Afreximbank as South Africa. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, please stay on the stage. Please stay on the stage, sir. Because we need to operationalize everything you've been talking about, and thank you for your profound words. You'll be joined on stage by Honorable Minister Tau, as well as Dr. Elombi to witness the signing. Thank you very much. As they are preparing the table for the physical signing and the deposit of the instruments of accession, I would like to ensure that I correct a mistake from the salutations earlier and acknowledge the Executive Mayor, Dada Morero, the Deputy Minister of the DTIC, Alexander Abrams, as well as the COSATU President, Zingwisa, and organized business in the room, BLSA and BBC. Okay, I was just correcting my salutations. Minister, you have two witnesses, the President, His Excellency, as well as Dr. Elombi. Okay, so it's your photo op opportunity, so you can stay on. Where is Melody? Where's the photographer? Okay, please click away, photographers.
Should we move the table?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just hold on. Just hold on.
Are there people that should be joining?
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. You can just move the table.
This is chaotic. You want me to-
Please call them. Go.
I need this.
Oh, okay. What are you going to do?
This is what joined just now.
After the pictures, President can exit.
Okay.
Okay, you can go.
Can we join you for the photo op?
Can we have the members only? Members of the bank only with the president?
I'm not happy.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it doesn't make sense.
This thing can't be organized by us. It must be organized ahead of the event.
We leave.
All right. Okay. Oh, okay. Handshake with the two of you, President. They'd like just the two of you. Yes. He's not going to the table. Okay. 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 Yes. Okay, everyone. That concludes the formal part of today. If we could please stand to allow the president to leave the room. He's rushing to another meeting. Thank you. Okay. Please take your seat and just give me 1 minute to conclude. We have now finished the proceedings for today, and the next part will be Minister Tau and Dr. Elombi to do the media briefings privately and the Q&A with the media. But as for us, what's left for me is to say a hearty thank you to all of you for your kind attention, and thank you for gracing us with your presence. If you could please join us for a networking outside and some eats. And thank you very much from me. I appreciate you all. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I am Sean Kimale, live for you in our Abuja studio. Tonight, Nigeria's security situation is once again at a